Atletico Madrid, they have agreed a deal with Manchester City for Julian Alvarez. As we pull up the details behind it, it's worth to be around 75 million euros. Um, that will be that is due up front, and then another 20 million euros in performance-based add-ons. So up to total of about 95 million euros or so for Julian Alvarez. This is actually Manchester City's record sell, and they're getting a profit on him since they signed him. They're getting about 17 million euros profit, with 2 years of work for the club. Alvarez has not yet agreed to personal terms with Atletico Madrid, but he is open to the move. That's the only reason why this negotiation has even started, and it seems like that's gonna be it's gonna happen. He's gonna agree to a deal. Manchester City initially, they wouldn't want to let go of a 24-year-old who, is very versatile in the fact that he gives them so much flexibility, can play anywhere amongst the front three, can play in an attacking midfield position. Is a very, very clever player. Scored 36 goals in 103 games, despite more than a majority of those games being coming off the bench. And he was part of the team that won the treble in 2023 and won 2 Premier Leagues. But Alvarez is looking at it from a perspective that, replacing Haaland is going to be impossible. In the fact that Haaland is, he just got to Manchester City just recently. He's the same age as Julian Alvarez, and he just scores goals for fun. So that wasn't really realistic for him. And for him to get minutes game in, game out as a starter for a club like Manchester City, you got to be at his natural position. Not saying he can't play those other roles well. He was very important in terms of his creativity when De Bruyne was out. He's so flexible. But again, he doesn't want to be a bit part player. He doesn't want to be, or he didn't mind it for a little bit, but now he's completed football. Now he wants to play game in, game out. Chicharito, what he was able to do at Manchester United, don't think that's what Julian Alvarez necessarily wanted to be. He didn't want to be a Chicharito or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And City has also signed Savinho, the Brazilian winger. They signed him in July, which has been one of their only signings so far this summer. I think now with getting this amount of money that they get, I think they'll attempt to at least reinvest some of these players, some of this money, to get someone to come in to not one singular guy, but maybe multiple guys to come in and give you the flexibility that Julian Alvarez gave you. Maybe get 1 or 2 players in, maybe, who knows. It really depends on what Pep Guardiola and whether he deems that City need that sort of reinvestment now with the money that they have. They still have an unbelievable squad. They still have hugely talented players. But to get a guy like Julian Alvarez, I think Alvarez provided so much flexibility, which I think that's what makes this signing extremely impressive, extremely good for Atletico Madrid, in my opinion. Besides Griezmann, of course, there's been a lot of players that came, to Atletico Madrid to sort of fill that role, that number 9 or that hybrid 9-10 role. Alvaro Morata, Memphis Depay, those sort of players. And I think Julian Alvarez, this is the best player that they've got over the past few years, in terms of that kind of player. Obviously, besides Griezmann, who's been a legend for them. João Felix is another one that they've got in that sort of role. João Felix, Memphis Depay, Alvaro Morata. But I think this guy is more, number one, he's younger. He's young. João Felix was young too, but João Felix just didn't work out. Julian Alvarez, Morata came back a little bit older, his second stint. Memphis Depay was a little bit later on. This is a Julian Alvarez that's coming in 24, coming in, completing football, coming in hugely accomplished, coming in, giving you flexibility, can get the goals, has the pace to be vertical and behind, can play off a striker, can play as a striker, can play multiple wing positions. He's gonna allow Atletico Madrid to continue what they're doing in terms of the way that they're playing in counter-attacking situations, being very fluid with the attackers. He's gonna be very fluid. He can play in every different role. He's a guy, whenever Atletico Madrid is observing pressure, he can come down, he can receive the ball, and he can be some sort of a playmaking sort of player. That's how much he provides, and I think he is the perfect complement to Griezmann. They're very, very similar players in the fact that they do similar things, but I think they'll complement well off of each other, because Julian Alvarez, he does give you the pace in behind, and Griezmann can play underneath him. And also, the one thing that shouldn't be underestimated about this is, look, whether or not him and Griezmann fit, I think they'll make it work. I think they'll make it work for this next season. But and there's already talks about Griezmann being in talks to sign with, MLS clubs right now. I believe there was a rumor at LAFC. Even if they can get another year out of Antoine Griezmann, or this doesn't work, I think Julian Alvarez is the perfect complement to Julian Alvarez. Julian Alvarez is the perfect complement to Antoine Griezmann, in which he can play behind the striker. He'll make the runs in behind. He's a clever little player. He's tidy. He's comfortable in tight spaces. He'll work really, really hard. He'll drop down and he'll be a creative sort of player. He can play so many different roles. He'll make those clever runs. He's just that kind of player, and he's the perfect complement to Antoine Griezmann, and what's made Antoine Griezmann so successful under Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. And I think Julian Alvarez is the perfect complement to that. And I think he could be a deadly, deadly player. And I think the thing that makes him more dynamite in this Atletico Madrid is, Atletico Madrid, they're naturally more defensive. They naturally play low block and rely on transition to create most of their opportunities in terms of goal scoring. And when you have a guy with the pace of another player that they've signed over the past few years that fits that sort of player is, I talked about Morata, Depay, João Felix, but also Angel Correa. I think this is Julian Alvarez is an upgrade over all those. But this guy is a guy with some real pace to get in behind. He's not the fastest. He's not Mbappe fast. He's not, he's not superhuman fast, but he has pace, and he can be a threat in behind to make runs in behind. He'll be a hard man to mark as center backs. You're going to have to be careful with him. You can't play too high because, you leave a crevice of space. You allow just a little bit of time for midfield for Rodrigo de Paul or whoever is playing in Atletico Madrid to pick out the ball in behind to Julian Alvarez. Alvarez will be able to burn you. He does have pace. It's sneaky sort of pace in which you don't really see it at. But look at that marvelous goal he had against Croatia in the World Cup semifinal, where he just ran through the entire team. Not only does he have pace, but he also has pace on the ball. He's going to be at the right place at the right time. He will work hard too. That's also a massive, massive thing. He'll work his blood off. He'll put blood, sweat, and tears to work hard for Diego Simeone to do the dirty defensive works. He'll press up whenever he's needed. He'll mark the holding midfielder to prevent an easy ball played in, just to play out of the pack. He'll do all the defensive work. He'll drop down. If they're observing pressure, of their suffering, if the other team is, has more of the ball, he's gonna be willing to run back and be that extra man to continue to tighten the block, to cut off passing lanes. He'll give you so much work rate at the same time. What you see, the part of the thing that made him so successful at Argentina with Messi, and why he really got the start over the likes of a Lautaro Martinez, who tears it up in the Serie A, is not just because of the verticality that he provides going in behind, being able to complement Messi, but it's also you cover, the deficiencies of Messi in terms of Messi at this day and age in his career. He's not going to press. He's not going to give you anything defensively. And Julian Alvarez, not only did he do his job, but he also covered for Messi. And again, very similar to Griezmann in terms of, Mbappe. Doesn't do much work defensively for France. So what happened? Griezmann and Rabiot, but also Griezmann, especially in the 2022 World Cup, he did so much defensive work. Him and Rabiot, so much defensive work, especially because they didn't even have Kante at that World Cup as well. They did so much defensive work for the team, and they were really pivotal. And Julian Alvarez, in my opinion, he'll also be really pivotal for them. But yes, going back to Manchester City, I think they did really well to be able to recoup the value for him plus more. Whenever you're selling a player, you're trying to normally you're just trying to recoup the money that you paid to get him, because he did give the club 2 years. But not only did they do that, but they made a little bit of a profit. And now they're able to reinvest this sort of money with this new PRS rules, making it more difficult for Premier League clubs in terms of spending. Now they can now they could go out and spend some money to bolster up the squad.